Did you know that for this movie, according to Bill Skarsgård, his voice was the part he worked the hardest at, spending 6 weeks before shooting, not doing much else than just recording himself. And on set, he would keep doing these exercises. He said it sounded a little like Mongolian throat singing. It's insane. So Nosferatu was a movie I was really looking forward to wrapping this year up with. I knew it was going to be an amazing movie and I had very high expectations for this movie. And let me tell you, those expectations were met. So I'm going to get into the 3 things I liked about this movie, and the last thing is definitely my favorite. First thing I loved about this movie is the story and the overall tone of the movie. Robert Eggers is just a master at cinematography and just really good at time periods, how to make things as cinematic as possible, as, you know, beautiful shots, beautiful landscapes, just really epic, deep contrasting shots. Like, I just knew that Nosferatu would be a movie that he would nail. It has everything that Robert Eggers loves to do. Great camera shots, cinematography, lighting, and then just the overall uneasiness, epicness of the gothic horror genre, and, you know, 1830s Germany, giving us that really old school time period there as well. And the story, for the most part, I think it followed the original movie pretty well. I do not remember the original movie very well. When I was in college, I took a lot of media classes, a lot of film classes. I'm a communications major, media studies, so I really dove a lot into film history classes at the end of my time. We got to talk about the silent film era and different, you know, in foreign movies as well. And Nosferatu came up as one of the topics that we talked about, and we got to see some clips, talked about why this movie was so impactful back in the 20s, the silent film era for Germany, just what it did for horror, the horror genre, and for, you know, the Dracula movies. There are so many Dracula movies now, and this movie was the one to really get the whole vampire and Count Dracula story rolling, but also the horror genre started taking off. And just looking at this movie and seeing what can we learn from this movie, what can other directors learn from how this movie was shot and produced, and how it evoked all these crazy emotions, and, you know, just the sheer terror and scariness of this movie. I mean, that's what I really loved about the tone of this movie, is it takes the same feelings that were evoked in the originals and it like turned it up to 11. I was on the edge of my seat for most of the movie. I was terrified, like I was utterly terrified of just for all the characters involved. The entire tone of the movie is you're always uneasy. There's no point in the movie where you feel good. There's no point in the movie where there's a happy feeling, joyous feeling. There's always a feeling of dread, doom, terror. Feel it in your soul. The symbolism of Nosferatu is it really drives home the movie, and really, really solidified Nosferatu as a staple in movie history. So the word Nosferatu is an archaic Romanian word that means the insufferable one or the offensive one. He represents this idea of someone who brings offense, someone who brings this utter fear and is death himself. What I really loved about this time around with Nosferatu is I think there's some more creative things added to the story. I don't remember there being such a deep relationship between Ellen and Count Orlok in the original. I just know he was obsessed with her for some reason. The relationship between Count Orlok and Ellen was very deep, very obsessive, very full of infatuation, but also like there are times when she's being possessed or she's just under a trance. Lots of like sexual gratification coming from it. It's unsettling. It's the best word I can describe this movie's tone, is unsettling. The performances in this movie really impressed me. This is my first time ever seeing Lily Rose Depp in a movie before, ever. Like I've never seen her act before. I know she was in a TV show a little while ago. I never saw that. This is a pretty good introduction. I think she did a great job. I think she really has some acting chops. Of course, her father, Johnny Depp, the legend. You could say she's kind of got some acting genes already just because of who her father is, but she's going out on her own, proving herself to everybody, and her performance as Ellen was haunting, terrifying, immersive, just incredible job. at playing a woman who's just so helpless at times, so defenseless, is so scared all the time of this power that she is in a relationship with. My favorite performance in this movie was Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok. You know, because the thing is, in the original, there were no lines spoken, you know, because it was silent. So you've never really heard Count Orlok speak before. And I was not expecting Count Orlok to speak in the way that Bill Skarsgård was going about it. Very scary, very, you know, he said Mongolian throat singing, and it was very guttural. And he was speaking a extinct language. It's called Dacian. That's added even more intrigue and uniqueness, and adds even more to the character of Count Orlok and just his overall look, the makeup design. I felt it was interesting that they added a mustache to Count Orlok. In the original he didn't have one, but this time they did, and it actually really worked. I was actually completely okay with that. He even said himself in an interview that he was really scared to do a role like this, to commit to such a dark role. I mean, yeah, you know, he's done Pennywise, so like he should be a little used to playing a scarier character. I did not expect Count Orlok to be this terrifying though. I can see why this movie would scare him. Like, you really, you know, invest yourself in a character like that, you can lose your mind, you can lose your sanity. It's happened before. You go the method acting route, it can really affect you. But I hope this doesn't affect Bill Skarsgård's mental health at all. Just, I really do admire when people go all in on roles like this, but I also know that you have to be careful that you don't become consumed by a role like this, because it can happen. It can happen, especially those actors, the great actors, who are not afraid to push the limits of acting. My favorite part of the movie was the very end of the movie. It was slightly different than how the original ended. It seemed like this movie was more sensual in nature. I was not expecting the end of that movie, man. That was beautifully tragic is how I would put it. It was a beautifully tragic ending. I did not expect it to end that way. It's very, very graphic, honestly. Like, it was a little much, honestly. But I will say, I think that does speak to what Robert Eggers is trying to get across. I don't know if I'll see this movie again, just because it was a little disturbing to me. A few things that I just don't want to see again. But, you know, that's what you're looking for, right? If I feel that disturbed and that unsettled by what I saw, then I would say that's the goal. Like, that's what Robert Eggers wanted to do. He wanted to invoke that unsettled feeling, the beauty in what Ellen was willing to do for love. Like, you could always tell that it was not going to end well. It just was cinematic, honestly. It was just cinematic. The last, like, 10 minutes of the movie, best part of the movie right there. I really hope this movie wins a few awards, because it definitely deserves them, and it definitely won a few in my book. So I highly recommend, if you are a fan of the gothic horror genre, if you're a fan of Robert Eggers, if you're a fan of Dracula, vampires, go see this movie with your friends, your family, as soon as possible. So for Nosferatu, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 Mudflaps. And remember, leave me a thumbs up and drop in the comments below, what is your favorite vampire movie? See you next time.